Hello and welcome to the Prospect Blueprint. I'm Kelly Kleinman, and this, of course, is my battery mate, Mr. Rick Dempsey, 24-year MLB vet and fan favorite of the Twins, Yankees, Orioles, Brewers, and Dodger fans. Oh, by the way, 1983 World Series MVP for the Baltimore Orioles. Hi, Rick.
How you doing?
Doing great. You just wrapped up a Dodger fantasy camp today, yeah?
Well, we just wrapped it up. I know I played in the championship game, and although we played the game before, we both still ended up with the best first and second place record, so we played for the championship. So I spent about 4 hours before the game setting defenses, because that was the key to keep this team from scoring too many runs. So I set the defensive perfectly. I put the best infield, the best double play combination I could get out of all the campers. And boy, we held them for about 6 innings. We were up 2-0 early. It stayed that way for about 4 innings, and then we started to rumble a little bit, but we ended up at a 3-3 tie at the end of 6. So I had to find a way, and you have to get all the campers in, and again, so I was trying to keep that defense together, but as soon as I took out that great combination I had up the middle, short and second base, things started to tear. Poor shortstop had a couple of errors, got picked off of first, and so it went down. We ended up losing. We gave up a 4 spot, and then that was the difference in the game. So I ended up coming in second place.
Well, that's what you get when you have 2 dentists, a lawyer, and an accountant in your infield. But here's a brief peek at our guest's bio. Happy to have him on, by the way. I'm not going to do it any justice, but you got to like what you see here. In 2022, the first season under head coach Eddie Smith. Eddie, welcome.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you on. The Utah Valley State Wolverines collected the most wins overall and the most wins in WAC play, Western Athletic Conference, that the program has experienced since 2016, and they won 30 plus, I think, in 2016, if memory suits me well. That's and right. They scored more runs, which goes hand in hand if you think about it. So they won ball games. Imagine that. Bottom line, Eddie Smith is a hitting guy. He was the hitting coach for LSU and before that Tulane. At each stop, there was a prodigious output of offense. Suffice to say, in my humble opinion, the AD, he picked the right guy. How you doing, Eddie?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Kelly. It's great to be here tonight.
Great to finally get you on. Rick, you started off, baby. First pitch.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know you talk about your recruiting process and everything and how it's going. From what I've got an update, a little scouting report on your team and what's been going on over there. It must be hard for you right now to really get good players to want to come up there right now.
Rick, I think everywhere I've ever coached has its own challenges, but I'm so excited about this class we have coming in. This is our first true recruiting class this fall, and it's going to be about 26 new players, and we've just scoured the country. Our staff has just done amazing work, starting with our recruiting coordinator, Nate Rasmussen, to our pitching coach, and our other assistant coaches. They just really, really done a good job of trying to turn over every rock we possibly can. I think one of the cool things about the college game right now is that you can really, really make an impact quick with the landscape, because as you know, the recruiting world is just flipped upside down compared to what we know of it traditionally. Yeah. And that transfer portal, the junior college route is another area we've explored a little bit with this class coming in. And then we've gotten some, good blue blood high school players that we're really excited about who they're going to be. And I think we're going to be able to throw it all together here, and excited for some fun things to come here.
Eddie, for me, I always felt like no matter what I got coming out of spring training, kids that were there to make the ball club, I always felt like I could be the one to help this guy really get on track, because it's about mechanics. And when you got a pitching coach that comes in and he knows a lot about good mechanics, it doesn't matter how hard they throw. I didn't need a guy who threw 98 miles an hour to make him successful. As a matter of fact, I had guys like Scotty McGregor and players like that who were soft tossers, but the body rhythm and their release point. The release point was always the most important thing to me. If one head's going to this way and the body's going that way, at the end of the delivery, you're going to struggle all the time. But if I went to the bullpen personally and I made sure the guy made a good enough turn so that I could get him to release one pitch, just one pitch the right way, I would get up and walk halfway and beat it into his brain saying, that's how the next pitch has to be. And that's where it all happens in the bullpen for you, with a good pitching coach. Maybe show them how to hold a curveball, that's fine, or the slider, use the cutter, whatever, how to hold the circle change up and everything. But if you don't have good mechanics there, you're beating your head against the wall. I hope that you guys can turn around, because I firmly believe if you can get those pitchers to focus on a good release point, you can win with anything, Eddie. And you already know you're an offensive guy. You like the guys that hit. But, when you really get somebody to crack down on fundamentals, that's when things are going to change the most.
Well, that's the plan.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, let's talk a bit about your process right now. So you've been out there on the circuit, and what events do you prioritize, and what's the criteria that you use to determine where you're going to recruit talent? Is it PG, travel ball tourneys, college summer leagues for Portal and JUCO?
I think it's a big variety of all of that. I've always said that there's no perfect formula to the recruiting world. None of us have the crystal ball. No one year is the same as the next year. No one player's story is the same as another player's. And so we're always trying to do everything that we can to put the best team on the field that we can. That's what we're hired to do here, bottom line. And so when it comes to the recruiting piece of that, we've made our biggest focus west of the Rocky Mountains. We've got a really good system here at Utah Valley where somebody from a state that's west of the Rocky Mountains is going to be able to go to school here very, very affordably. And then if we're able to add some baseball scholarship on top of that, as you all know, we don't have enough scholarships compared to what we wish we had in the sport of college baseball all the way across the board. I'm talking about the SEC all the way to the WAC to the Atlantic 10 and every conference in between. And so we got to find ways to get players in situations where that bottom line and what they're paying out of their pocket is as close to zero as possible. That's part of the game. That's a big part of the game in our sport. And so that advantage that we have west of the Rocky Mountains is huge with these states where they have this reciprocal to get them, this extra scholarship dollar that they have on the academic side. And so it's been a big focus of ours. In fact, we hired our staff here with the intent to make sure we had the entire region covered in terms of people with experience recruiting those areas. And then for the last 13 months, we have dove in head first, trying to scratch and claw and, trains, buses, planes, you name it, anything it takes to get to the ball games and get on the ground, boots on the ground, as we call it, to, just really establish these relationships with the travel coaches and the high school coaches and the junior college coaches in these regions here. And, I think it's something where that's how it works. And I think we've got an exciting class coming in, and now we just got to go make some improvements and win some ball games. And I've always said, it's a snowball effect. If you could show that you can develop players and make them better, you're going to win more games, and that's going to allow you to get just a little bit higher caliber of a player the next go round, and you just keep developing them, making them better, and winning a few more games, and the snowball just keeps going up.
Well, you tell me, Eddie, because Kel has just got me involved in this college thing, and I never went to college, and I just went right from high school to pro ball. But what you do with recruiting, I don't think I could ever do it because I just wouldn't know how to do it. But I mean, once I get the players, get my hands on them, then things can change. But it's got to be hard for you to go to kids from Arizona and California who are used to playing in the sunshine, which I was. I was lucky. I was raised in California playing ball. It's got to be awfully tough to say, hey, come on up where I am, but it's cold up here, Or is it really that much of a factor?
Hey, if you want to play in Yankee Stadium in October during the World Series, you got to get used to it. And you have. Preaching to the choir.
I played at the beginning of the season in Yankee Stadium where, it was so bone cold. And then go from Yankee Stadium to the old Detroit Stadium where the dugouts were down underground at that old stadium, and you'll be looking at the ball game from just your head above ground a little bit, but so freaking cold. You couldn't warm guys up your hand. It would just kill you. But I can't imagine it being that cold where you are.
Yeah, no, it's not. No, I love that story. You know, of all the stadiums, I've been really fortunate. I think I've been to about 27 big league stadiums now, and the old Tiger Stadium is the one that I wish I would have got to before they tore it down. So I appreciate you sharing that story. But you know, I think, hey, certainly we are not Phoenix, Arizona. Let's not pretend that we are, right? But I think we might be a little bit misunderstood here where we are. We're right in the heart of the high desert. We are a desert climate by definition. We will get a little bit of snow. It will get cold at times, but I know that this last January and February, we were outside and on our field more than the Mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas were on their fields. You know, that's in part of the country where I've spent a big part of my career, and I know they were fighting the snow and the cold and everything, and I've fought it there, and we got to fight it just a little bit here early on in the season in the warm-up time. But we have a turf field. School put that in 2020. Unfortunately, it finished the day before COVID shut the entire world down of college baseball.
Yeah.
But the turf field just goes so far for us in being able to get on the field during that time of year and get out there and get work in. Hey, even if it's just an hour of getting out there on a day where you get that sun break in January and it's 45 degrees out and there's no wind, you don't have to wait for all the dirt to thaw or the mud to get ready to go. It's a little bit better than that. We do also have a really nice indoor full bubble, much like the old Metrodome, where it is a full soccer field. We're able to scrimmage inside of that. We can either have a right fielder and a center fielder to have a full scrimmage and no left fielder, or we can turn the angle of the field and have a center fielder and a left fielder, but no right fielder. But hey, it's pitcher versus hitter. We got an artificial mound, 60 feet, 6 inches. Hey, you know what? Of course, that time of year for that month or 2 months a year, we would rather be in the Dominican Republic or Mexico, you know, but the reality is that the give to get is that I can look right out this window right here to my right, which you obviously can't see right now. And you're going to have some of the most beautiful country in the entire United States of America. So it's a pretty cool place to play.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be. I mean, wherever you would have given me a job, I wouldn't have cared if it was in Alaska. I would have loved to have been there. I didn't really care.
Yep.
Yeah, Rick, you had a question regarding showcases.
Oh yeah. You know, you well, how would I put it? How do you explain the showcases that you have?
The proliferation of showcases all over the place. How do you choose which one you go to?
Right.
Yeah, you're telling some kid that you want to have play with you, but then you got to advise him on whether he wants to or not.
Correct. You know, and I get this question probably twice a month minimum from people. You know, it's become an industry. It's become a business unlike any other. It's become something where, they're ranking people who are in first grade nowadays on the national scale, you know, and it's something where it's out of control, by all means, completely out of control. But I also understand, you know, every parent wants the best for their kid. And for so many parents, it would be like myself going into a real estate deal or myself going into the auto shop and saying, hey, what's wrong with my car? I have no idea. That's why I'm coming to you, you know? And so I'll get this question from people all the time, because if it's your first time going through the recruiting process, you get approached by so many services and so many showcases that you don't know which one is good and which one is just trying to make it and which one's just trying to grab some money. And I think it's a really, really tough question to answer. It's dynamic. It changes year to year. I think that there are some that are established that have been around for many years now that you can really look at them and say, okay, I know that's going to be a really good showcase right there to go to. There will be exposure. There will be college coaches out there. For everyone that's like that, there's probably 5 to 10 other showcases where you run the risk of no college coaches showing up. I mean, shoot, sometimes I'll look at it and these showcases are being ran right in the heart of a dead period, meaning Division I coaches can't even go to them if they wanted to. And so it's tough. It is a really, really tough landscape from that side of things for a parent, especially one that's not involved in the game prior to their young son coming up through the recruiting process now. And so I think my biggest points that I would make would be, one, ask as many questions as you can to the organization running the showcase that you can think of. Hey, what college coaches are going to be there? How can you assure me that those college coaches are going to be there? How many reps am I going to get at the showcase? The reality is, and from the recruiting side, it's this way for efficiency purposes, and it's for most cases is all we need. But the reality is that most showcases, you're maybe going to get 2-3 rounds of 5 swings in the batting cage. You're going to get 4 or 5 ground balls. You're going to run a 60-yard dash if you're an infielder. You're a pitcher, you're going to get maybe 1 inning to pitch or a 15-pitch bullpen situation. And you got to understand, what are you getting out of this? How's it going to go? Is there anything other than the showcase? Making sure that for you individually, it's worth your time and money, because you could literally go to a showcase every other day for 365 days of the year, I think, all over the country and never stop. That's how many there are out there.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
It is. And I think the last thing I would say is, if you're really, really interested in some specific schools, I do think the institutional showcases are a pretty good one from that side of it, where if you have interest in the University of Texas or the University of Virginia or Western Kentucky, and those are just examples, whatever it might be, I think the advantage of going onto those campuses are that you can assure yourself that you're going to be seen by that coaching staff, and you're also going to go onto that campus. And of course, you're hoping they evaluate you and they love you and they want to recruit you and offer you a scholarship and everything else. But you're also going to be able to evaluate them. How do those coaches interact? What kind of atmosphere is it? Is it structured? Is it laid back? Is it intense? Is it more laissez-faire? There's something that's right for everyone. Every program's different. I think that's a pretty good starting point for some families.
Well, part of the difficulty with that, though, is that right now there are so many people out there. There's so many players out there in the portal, freshmen coming in, JUCO guys, that you might have 6 or 7, 8, 9, 10 schools that you're interested in because you need to have fallbacks, and no one can really afford to go. It's just as expensive to do that as it is to get in these showcases repeatedly. Let me reverse. It's an expensive process, no matter how you look at it. And I might want to go to Harvard. I might want to go to Ohio State or Miami, but it's going to run me $1,200. It's just going to be too expensive. And then I'm going to get it. Perhaps it's a chance you take, I guess. But let's talk about the financial aspect from your standpoint. There's a lot of smaller D1 schools that are relatively strapped for funds and tend to recruit regionally, such as perhaps yourself. That leaves a lot of potential talent out there that you have no access or limited access to, which beckons the question, what means do you have to ID talent that falls outside of your travel area that might not only be a game changer for your program, but let's be frank, secure your chances for a contract extension? And I'm talking about people on the other side of the country go, you know what? I love what he did at Tulane. I love what he did at LSU. Gosh, he's out there at Utah. How am I ever going to get him to see? I can't afford to get out there to get in front of him, but I know my kid's a good ball player. How do they get in front of him?
Right.
Is there a process?
Yeah, well, that's one of the more challenging things, Kelly, is that I think there's probably a lot of situations like that in the game where somebody would love to come to your program, but you don't have the opportunity to see them, whether it's they're too far away, the timing just never lines up, whatever it might be. I mean, shoot, the number of times in my career I've not moved forward in recruiting a player and he goes on to become a really good college player. Actually had this conversation last night with a friend of mine where his organization took a player in the first round who I ended up not recruiting. Hey, joke's on me. And, I probably shouldn't share that with too many people if I want to keep a reputation in the game, but I also think it's part of it. You can't recruit everybody. And again, I told you earlier how it's not a crystal ball and it's far from a perfect science. It's not a process. It's about being perfect. It's about being the best that you can with it. As far as somebody who's from, Oklahoma, Michigan, Toronto, Maryland, you name it, way away from Utah Valley. It's hard. It's really hard. I probably get in the range of 15 to 20 emails a day personally from people all over the world expressing their interest in us. We have a system in place where we try to respond to every one of those emails with a quick note and information about our program, etc. I'm sure there's some that fall through the cracks still, but still that we don't have the time to give those emails attention individually. Otherwise, that's all we do all day. And so it's something where, there's a handful of people that I definitely, over the years, I respect enough on the recruiting side that if they pick up the phone and call me, I'll listen to them. There's a handful of people in the recruiting piece that if they pick up the phone and tell me, hey, this guy can really play, I'm not only listening to him, I'm saying, okay, how do I get in touch with him? Because I trust that guy. That guy has put me on to 2 or 3 players over the years, and he's been spot on with his evaluations, whether that's a travel coach or a scout or an agent, whatever it might be. Those people that have a sparkling, clean reputation with me as far as their player recommendations is big for somebody like that we're not seeing here on the western half of the U.S. And, the last piece is this is something that happened a couple of times this year where people had a very specific interest in our program. And you mentioned it, unfortunately, for all of us. I grew up in a family where my dad taught and my mom worked a little bit and really did a lot around the house to make it go around for our family. And, we didn't have the means to be able to do this sort of thing that often, but we had a couple examples throughout the course of this first calendar year where people flew to Utah, didn't know who they were at camp registration, and by the end of our camp, we were offering them scholarships. And you mentioned it earlier. There's a financial component to that. Hey, $1,200 to get on a flight, hotel, and pay the camp fee. And we've done everything we can here to make our camps the most affordable camps in the region because we're trying to make them accessible because we're using them as a recruiting tool because of this concept you're talking about, where we don't want to put up a barrier to get a good player on our campus. And so it's something where those are kind of the avenues that we approach with that. And shoot, the reality is you got to put your head on the pillow at night, knowing you put everything you could into the recruiting process and also accepting that there's going to be a handful of players all over the country that probably wanted to come to your school wherever you are, and they don't end up there and they would have helped you, but you have no way to sort through that 1% of the people that are emailing you and calling you.
Eddie, I feel your pain a little bit about trying to evaluate players. I spent the day-to-day with a guy I did not give a very good ranking to, Eric Gagne with the Dodgers. I know you know that name. And he was supposed to be a starter and a good starter, And I could tell by warming up in the bullpen that, he just didn't have that kind of starter stuff that I thought that a guy was going to have to take a major league job. Yeah. But boy, I'll tell you what, did he ever prove me wrong when they changed him to a closer. When he became a closer with that changeup that he had, he set records for the amount of saves, consecutive saves at the major league level. And that made everybody look bad. So don't feel bad if something like that happens to you, because some little click here or there can change everything around. But let's talk a little bit about your ball club. Who's coming back for you? How many good players do you really have? And, what are you being able to recruit and get immediately what you need at this point for the rest of the season? It's probably going to be mostly pitching. And that's everybody's want and need right there.
Isn't that the truth? You watch the World Series or the Little League World Series, it's always going to come down to that guy on that little hill in the middle of the field, isn't it?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, that's been a major focus for us in the recruiting process. And we're really excited. We have a pitcher coming in who was a junior college All-American out of Illinois. We're really excited about. He struck out something like 150 hitters over the course of the last calendar year. Very excited about him. We have another pitcher transferring from the University of Washington who spent 2 years starting on Friday nights in the Pac-12 for Washington. I think that'll be a really good addition to our staff. We just lost a pitcher to the Phillies here who was transferring to us from Mississippi State, who is a lefty that's throwing the ball 95, 98 miles an hour. Unfortunately, as you know, the professional game likes guys like that too. So he got a nice check and went over to camp with the Phillies in Clearwater. But we've really addressed that. There's going to be a lot of competition this fall among our team. We flat out have to get better. Okay. There's no doubt about that. And that was one of the exciting things about me in taking this job was I sat here and I said, holy cow, this is a facility, it was built for the Angels rookie league team. It's beautiful ballpark on our campus. The Angels rookie league team has moved out. Now it's completely ours. We got a locker room set up. We got batting cages underneath. It's spectacular. And I just sat here and looked at it and I just thought it was a blank canvas that we could come in here and create it ourselves. And, that's all part of the story we're hoping to write. And I'll tell you, I can't be more excited about this upcoming fall. We do have 26 new players coming in. We've got a couple returning players I'm excited about. We have a guy who's coming back for his 5th year, Mick Madsen, heart and soul of our team. Trey Cutchin last year in his first year with us really did a good job of swinging the bat. He led the state of Arizona junior college system in batting average in 2021, and we were able to get him last year late in the process, and he's been great for our program. And then, there's a player named Spencer Olson who was a freshman for us last year that led us in home runs, led us in OPS, second highest batting average. He has some real promise to hit the ball a long way. So We're hoping to add some newcomers into these guys that had some decent years last year. And we're just really going to promote a lot of competition this fall and see how it shakes out.
You know what I like about you already? Kelly, you're going to agree with me. I love this guy's passion. He has a passion of putting that team together and getting some wins out of them. So I hope everything works out for you, Ed. It sounds like it is because you're pushing hard.
Well, thanks, Rick. I'll tell you, it's the first thing I wake up thinking about in the morning, and
no doubt
the last thing I think about when I go to bed. So it's a lot of fun. I love it.
Well, let's touch base on a paradigm shift that's just taken place in college sports. It hasn't quite trickled down to baseball yet, but it has in the transfer portal. But then there's the NIL. How does that affect your program as kids tend to chase dollars outside of just scholarships, and they're willing to bail if they don't get playing time at the outset? Are you more inclined to scan JUCOs for more experienced players? It looks like you've already gone into the portal for this upcoming class because JUCO players run less of a risk of bailing because they only have 2 years left of eligibility, 2 or 3 years at the most.
Yeah, I think paradigm shift is a perfect word for it. It is completely different. This is year 17 for me now in college baseball, and there's been more change in the last 2 years than there were in the previous 15 years combined. And, for our program, the NIL piece plays a very, very small role. And I think I speak for probably 75% of Division I college baseball programs. Certainly, there's some places out there that there's some real serious money funneling around in the NIL world. We're not one of those. And most of the teams in our league, they really are not. So that doesn't impact us that much. But you talk about the transfer portal, and that really does impact us. I think that the reality is if we do it right, we're probably going to lose a player or two every single year to a school that maybe is able to offer them NIL money, or a school that's going to be able to, show a little bit more of a history of going to Omaha than we have. And, it's kind of one of those realities that we're facing right now and saying, hey, we hope we get to that point where we have players so good that they are getting picked off by some other schools.
Sure.
On the other end of it, you mentioned, hey, if a player doesn't play right away, it's a real thing right now. It is the reality that if a player doesn't play as a freshman to the extent that they want to, so often they're transferring at rates that are significantly higher than has ever been before. And the reality, and much like rookies, I saw this the other day, a stat where, Mike Trout hit 220 in his rookie year over the course of 60 games, the first year he was called up to the big leagues. Well, it's a good thing he didn't sit there and quit or transfer, because he's been pretty special to watch ever since.
Sure.
And it's just a harsh reality. Go through box scores of four-year schools in Division I baseball in the SEC, or Division I schools in the WAC, or NAIA schools, or Division III schools. Freshmen very rarely are everyday players, and if they are, they're very rarely experiencing the success that they've had throughout their lives. And so what has always been so awesome, in my opinion, is that college baseball is a great way for a player to experience failure for the first time, get knocked square in the face for the first time by the game, and have to find a way to stand back up for themselves and figure it out. And
yeah, 100%.
It's a pretty big metaphor for life right there, if you ask me.
100%. Totally agree.
Things have changed, so it's interesting.
Are you recruiting? So this recruiting class is the class of 22. Yeah. Are you still recruiting for the class of 23, or is that pretty much done too?
We're actively recruiting the class of 2023 right now. Yes. We are still looking to add probably a handful of high school players, and we'll probably end up adding a handful of transfers too through the portal in the junior college ranks.
Makes sense. Coach Eddie Smith. Well, Rick, real quick, we've got about 5 more minutes to go before our time is up. Anything you'd like to add? Ask Coach Eddie Smith.
Well, Ed, I am curious about your catching, to tell you the truth, because if you can get a couple of young, good catcher, or at least one good catcher that can, that really sets up well and gives a good target, works well with your pitching staff, he can help them a lot. I know, because at 19 years old, when they told me I wouldn't even make it out of my first spring training in A-ball, that I ended up catching in the big leagues at 19 years old. And it's really, whatever I was bringing to the ball club, they liked it because they kept me in the big leagues out of A-ball.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's an awesome story. And you bring up a great point. I say to every catcher that we have that it's the most important position in sports. Okay. Yes. Job number one is you got to babysit that pitcher every single day. You're also the defensive coordinator on the field. You're also the air traffic control man once the ball is put into play on the field. Not to mention the skills you talked about, giving a good target, being a good receiver, being able to block, being able to throw, field a bunt, et cetera, et cetera. We haven't even talked about the offensive side of it. Most important position in sports. And I think that if you have a really good catcher and an average pitching staff, that pitching staff can still pitch really good. But if you have a good pitching staff and an average catcher, that
he brings them down.
That's going to be average. And so we put a lot of premium on that position. We're really excited. We have a fifth-year catcher coming back to us, started at BYU, and he came to us through the transfer portal as well. And he's just got a really good demeanor about himself. Really excited for what he's going to bring to us this year. We also have a rookie catcher coming in. He's from St. George, Utah, and this kid is a unicorn. Okay, he throws 195s on the base. He's a switch hitter. He's only 5'9", but he's got some juice in there.
Yeah.
35 was his score on the ACT. He's here on a full academic scholarship, presidential scholarship, black belt in karate, and he played the violin for the national anthem on his senior day of his high school. I mean, where does this guy come from? I don't get it. So, he's a guy that we're really excited about for the future also. And I think he's somebody that just has oozed that leadership piece that we're so excited about.
I'm glad to hear that from you because, real quick, I know we don't have much time, but real quick, one of the things that has hurt Major League pitching so much the last few years is the fact that Major League catchers do not spend any time at all working with their guys in between starts in the bullpen. That is where you find out what this guy's really capable of doing, where his release point, where he needs to be. And then you learn little key ways to get him back on track when he really starts to fall off and get out of balance. But It's so important to have your starting catcher. I know it's a tough job, but I did it for years, is working with all your starters to make sure they know exactly where that body has to be. So easy to lose it. We use the rhythm and timing. You can't throw the ball over the plate. The most important pitch is always going to be strike one. You know that. And if that pitcher and catcher are on track, no matter what speed of those starters you have, you get them up there throwing strikes, and man, your game's going to get a whole lot easier.
Well, there's no doubt about that. That's some great insight right there. Thank you, Rick. I'm going to keep that one in mind.
My pleasure.
Coach Eddie Smith, thanks for joining us. Good luck in the recruiting battles.
Thanks, Eddie.
Well, Kelly and Rick, it's a pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Okay, good. It's nice to talk to you, and good luck, man. I'll be looking for good things out of you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
From us here at the Prospect Blueprint, remember, keep your chin in and your eyes on the ball. Have a good night.